Okay. So I'm going to get off. I guess I'm not. I'll just stand still. Yeah. So if you want to, so are we going to do that one first?
Whatever.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we're rolling, and take as many as you need.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm John Sinclair, Artistic Director and Conductor for the Bach Festival Society. And I'd like to share with you a program, an upcoming program, one called The Resurrection and Romanticism. Actually, I got that backward. Romanticism and Resurrection. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to share with you an upcoming program, Romanticism and Resurrection. I've had great fun putting this program together because it brings together great composers of the late Romantic era and their view of the fabulous subject of resurrection. Of course, this concert takes place around the Easter season. It starts with a little overture by Elgar, Edward Elgar. We know him best by his Pomp and Circumstance. But Elgar was by Hans Richter, the great conductor, who said maybe the best living composer. And that was high praise. Think about the late Romantic with all those great composers. This is a meditation, opens with a beautiful meditation, orchestral meditation. Quickly on to César Franck's Psalm 150, famous song setting. And Franck was the real deal as a composer, a great organist, great musician, loved by the community, a very, very influential teacher. And this is a piece he wrote late in life, actually never premiered, I don't believe, in his lifetime, and certainly not published in his lifetime, but a powerful, wonderful setting for our choir of Psalm 150. Followed then by the Gounod's Sanctus. Now that piece actually comes from the Mass, the Messa Solennelle, or some people refer to it as the St. Cecilia Mass. And it has been sung for decades and centuries by all the great artists. It's either for soprano or tenor and chorus, and it is divine. Gounod was a hugely religious man. Even in his piano, the place where he held his music rack, had carved face of Jesus, a rendering of Jesus. Gounod was very, very religious. And so this was a very important piece of music to him. And he was also a very important composer of his day. Most of these people also worked at the Paris Conservatory, as did Franck. But Gounod had a little different too. We know him for several pieces. We know his famous Ave Maria, but perhaps even more importantly, we know him in modern times by his Funeral March of the Marionettes, which was the theme song for the Alfred Hitchcock show, which everyone remembers that theme. It was very telling. But this piece is just divine and will be sung by our artist Bob Bro, and then onward to a piece from the opera world, Mascagni, Pedro Mascagni, who was an opera composer, very famous in his day. Matter of fact, so famous that conductors like Mahler conducted his works in their mid-20s. He was a world star at age 25, 26. And this is his masterpiece, the Cavaliere Rusticano. And this is one of the most important scenes from there. Our guest artist, Mary Wilson, will be singing that work. And it will feature choir and orchestra, and it's called Scene and Prayer. On we go to another great piece that you rarely hear nowadays. It's by Arthur Gall, a British composer of the Romantic era. Interestingly, this was the most published piece and most purchased piece of music for almost a half century in England. But it really never made much of an impact here. And it is from his Holy City, and it's called the Cherubic Hymn, and it's written for bass solo featuring our Kevin Days, soloist, and women's chorus. And the first half ends with the Russian Easter Overture. Many musicologists have said this is the whole Easter story from dawn to dusk. And it is one of Rimsky-Korsakov's most prized compositions. And many know this, but he was considered really the guru of orchestration. So this has all kinds of colors and interesting sounds throughout the whole piece. Now, after intermission is the main event. If this were a boxing match, we call it the main event at this point. And it is Theodore Dubois' Seven Last Words of Christ. This is a powerful, dramatic, vivid telling of the story of the Seven Last Words of Christ. And it features all three of our soloists and chorus and orchestra. This piece was very famous in its day, and Theodore Dubois was the director of the Paris Conservatory for about 10 years. finally kind of lost his power in France, an interesting story. And this ties in beautifully with our story of Romanticism, because Dubois was well entrenched to the concepts of Romanticism. So much so that he forbid his students going listening to concerts of Debussy, who was a little too progressive for him. And he didn't get along with Ravel, who was in the conservatory when he was teaching there. So it typifies the French Romanticism, and this piece is big, brawny, and very powerful, and a piece that you may have heard throughout the years, but never probably in its original Latin, which gives it even more striking power. So we hope you'll join us for this program. It promises to be an interesting one, and well, let me find something else to say. We hope you will join us for this program. I promise you an interesting one, and I promise you great music and maybe some that you haven't heard before, but nevertheless, continuing our tradition at the Bach Festival, providing you the best of choral and orchestral music. Hope to see you there.
That was incredible. You've been on camera before.